I call to order the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Apache Junction. The date is Tuesday, December 8th, 2020. The time is now 7 o'clock p.m. I invite you to stand with me now and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call. Rudy?
Commissioner Begeman. Here. Commissioner Cantwell.
Here.
Vice Chair Hanchey.
Here.
Chairman Heck.
Here.
Commissioner Cross.
Here.
Commissioner Gage.
Here.
All present, Mr. Chairman. We have one vacancy, which we will fill in January.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is consideration and approval of tonight's agenda, as well as consideration and approval of the regular meeting minutes of November 10th, 2020. Do I hear a motion to accept the agenda and the minutes?
Chairman Heck?
Yes.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the agenda as presented and approve the minutes from the November 10th, 2020 regular meeting.
Very good. Thank you. I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a second. Roll call. Rudy?
Was that Commissioner Gage?
No.
Darrell?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Cross, did you? Oh, Dirk, I'm sorry. Commissioner
Begeman. Okay.
Sorry.
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hanchey.
Yes.
Chairman Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner Cross.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you. We now come to the public hearing portion of the meeting. There's one item scheduled for this evening. It's item 20-648, presentation, discussion, public hearing, and consideration of PZ-7-19, a city-initiated rezoning of 978 East Roosevelt Street from RSGR, general rural, low-density, single-family detached residential, to RS20, medium-density, single-family detached residential, for the purpose of developing the property and splitting the parcel into 3 lots. The property is located between Royal Palm Road and Cactus Road. And this will be, is Kendra?
Yep.
Kendra.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kendra Elner, and I'm a planning intern here at the city. And tonight I'm going to present to you the continuation of case PZ-719, the city-initiated rezoning at 978 East Roosevelt Street. So just a little recap and a timeline of this case. This is approximately a 2.37-acre parcel that was donated to the city by the previous owners who lived in Germany because it lay abandoned and occupied by trespassers for several years. And on July 23rd, 2019, the city approved the direction to staff to proceed with all necessary actions on the pending approval of rezoning of this property. And this case was presented at 2 recent and previously scheduled city meetings proposing to rezone. Staff recommended from RSGR to RS20 PD. Both commission and council meetings voted to continue the case to the specified dates for staff to return to the P&Z meeting today with 2 new lot exhibits for a formal motion. So just another brief overview of the surrounding neighborhood designations. So to the east, there are properties zoned RM2 or multifamily residential, and to the north, south, and west, predominantly RSGR low-density residential. And then here's a current aerial of the parcel. It is a 2.37 acre with an RSGR general rural zoning designation. So our original proposal was a direction to staff that was requesting to rezone the vacant parcel from RSGR to just RS20, but recent topographical information encouraged further recommendation where the staff presented at the 2 city meetings proposing it to RS20 by plan development to help mitigate the topographical constraints, and then eventually proposing to do a lot split with reduced setbacks and an allowance of 2 horses per lot under the RS20 PD. However, further discussion and analysis has changed the staff's recommendation to propose to you tonight that we should keep the parcel at RS20 by plan development, with a plan development overlay. So the future land use exhibit from the 2020 general plan shows that the variety of future land uses in the area are generally low density to the north, west, and south. But to the east, there's a high density, and proximity to the downtown area can encourage higher density. So if the commission goes with the staff's originally presented recommendation to RS20 PD, it would be considered a minor plan amendment. However, the staff has decided to recommend the commission stay consistent with the general plan and keep the parcel RSGR with a PD overlay for special setback requirements with the wash and topographical constraints. So the next two slides are just from the previously presented conceptual 3-lot land split that was proposed for the RS20 PD designation. And then this is the topography map that visualizes the wash constraints on the west side. And then these two slides are the two exhibits the staff was requested to present today. So this is the half and half land split. So it wouldn't be exactly in half because it's a 2.37 acre parcel. So just a little bit to more to the east side. And then on the east and west land split, staff is proposing the RSGR by plan development overlay with the reduced setbacks and allowance of only the west lot having horse privileges. So this is the staff's analysis and recommendation. We recognize that the original proposal conflicted with the city's general plan because of the future land use designation for low density residential, but the proximity to downtown and the variety of land uses in the area does invite higher density, but it would be a minor plan amendment. And however, the current property is zoned for low density, and the current wash constraints limit the conceptual buildable area. So after thorough review of the public comments and internal discussions, the planning and zoning staff have recommended rezoning the property to stay RSGR, but with a planned development overlay for the purpose of processing a 2-parcel land split with a 1.25 acre to the west and a 1.12 acre to the east, both with reduced setbacks and allowance of horse privileges only on the west lot and none on the east, and that is in accordance with the zoning ordinance. So following the approval of this case, it is subject to the conditions, and there are additional options. So we put together a table. So with the findings and recommendations from tonight, the commission has several options to choose from, and we can return to this for further discussion. So these are the staff's recommended motions to split the property as conceptually approved, coordinate with the city engineer if there are any utility easements or right-of-ways, if the city shall disclose to the prospective buyers for any property improvements. And then all applicable permits will be, and development fees will be due at the time of development. And then especially number 5, allow setbacks of 25 feet in the front, 40 foot in the rear, 20 foot in the sides, and horse privileges only on the west lot, which is 1.25 acres. So are there any questions?
Any questions? Anyone?
Yeah, I have one.
All right, Dave?
Why do we have to specify horse privileges if we're already allowed in RSGR to have horses on the 1.25?
Because on the 1.12, we just need to, with the PD overlay, we just need to specify that it's going to be in line with the zoning ordinance, and we're going to allow horses only in accordance to that. So the PD overlay is only for the setbacks.
Okay.
Does that?
So the ordinance itself doesn't reference horses or no horses. We're just going to know that 1.25 is the gross acres, so it can have horses. And the zoning, again, this diagram, we're going to go with 25 feet in the front, 40 in the back, and 20 on the sides.
Right.
In
So
terms
this
of
is-
what the setbacks So this diagram shows 25, 10, 10, and 20. We're actually recommending 40 in the rear, which is the RSGR setback, 20 on the sides, which is the RSGR setback, but only modify the 25-foot front setback. So that's just for main buildings. So accessory buildings can be built closer to the lot line, but a house has to, it's a main dwelling, right, Rudy, would have to meet the setbacks.
A main dwelling and an accessory building would both have to meet the minimum setbacks for the main dwelling, which we're recommending be 25 feet.
But like a building smaller than 120 can be within 3 feet of the lot line, things like that.
No, it would still have to be in the rear side yard.
No, I'm saying, but a accessory building under 120 square feet can be closer than 20 feet to the side lot line. It can be,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Jesse?
Yeah, so just to be clear, there's not going to be any language in this recommendation with respect to horses on either lots. It's,
Correct.
is that fair? Okay.
Correct.
Thanks.
Kendra? A question I have, if, again, looking at the RSGR and the 1.25 acres, I would like maybe to understand why the decision was made to make the 1.25 acres on the west side, not the east. Reason being, having seen that 1.25, that lot that's, for someone to put horses on there, they would have to do a lot of grading, or they're gonna have to get mountain mules to live there. So is there a reason why we wouldn't have swapped that so that someone who wanted horses could utilize it more so on the east side?
I think that was a request to make it this configuration. I mean, of course, we could probably swap it. I don't think that's an issue.
I think primarily because the neighbor to the east, there's two houses to the east. One is zoned multiple dwelling, and I guess in deference to the person that showed up at the public hearing, that
Right.
horses not be there. And again, I don't know a lot about horses, but it seemed like there is certainly land on the other side of the wash that you could put up a shade or a Mare Motel or something like that would still accommodate that. So the main intent was to not be as close to the two dwellings that were there.
I think it
Other
gives-
questions?
I think it gives a kind of nice buffer too, because this is all RSGR with horse privileges. None of this is.
Right, yeah.
That kind of gives you a little more buffer to transition over as
Okay,
well.
I guess my concern, having horses, I know that they can exist in some rough land, but it seems like they would have to do some work on that property. So I'm thinking, well, the east side would be more compatible for horses, but again, I understand with the neighbor that was at the meeting, he was opposed to that. I would want another question. Anyone else have questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just from the last meeting, I'm going to ask the same question again. The real driver for this rezoning is for the city-owned property to be sold, and it's the staff's belief that splitting it would allow these two lots to be sold at a higher price, as opposed to not doing any zoning at all on it, not changing the existing zoning on this property. Is that still the
That's
case?
still my feeling, that creating the two lots and having the city go through the rezoning, having the city create the two lots, now we got something to sell, and have the next person come in and do essentially what we're doing and capitalize on that. Why don't we capitalize on that and get some higher price, then we can take the proceeds and go do something else, clean up a different neighborhood. So that's my
Yeah.
feeling.
And then I guess, I don't know if it's not a question, it's kind of a statement, my statement on this issue. I see just kind of a potential conflict of interest here, in that we're going to split this property so that the main reason of it is to generate more revenue from the sale of 2 lots versus the sale of the existing lot. So I just have a hard time in the future when a future applicant comes in and wants to split his 1.25 acre lot that is zoned low density, basically do the same thing we're proposing. And his justification is because I can sell it for more money, you know. And I think it would be difficult for us to turn him down if we're going to do the same thing for a city lot. So I just see a conflict there. How can we deny an applicant, a future applicant's redistricting if we're going to do it ourselves to our own property?
Mr. Chair
Yep.
and Mr. Gage, you don't set a legal precedent. Now, to the public and to others, does it set a staff administrative conflict or precedent? I don't think it does. I think each case you weigh on its own evidence. So it's not a legal one. You could deny it in the future, but you'd have to look at all the circumstances. In this case, you had Mr. Bowrider, who did start this project by turning in the drug addicts that were on that property and giving him deference, having no horses next to him. I think he'd be very appreciative of that. So there's elements like that. There's the ravine you have to look into. In the future, you may have parcels that don't have this wash. So I think you can do it. I don't think it's a legal conflict. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay. And I'm not, legal or not, I'm not proposing to be a legal expert, but for me, it's kind of a public trust issue.
But if someone came in and had 2.37 acres somewhere else, and they wanted to create an acre and a quarter and one that's 1.12, because that's all the land they had, and they could split it any way they want, it's almost, you'd have to go with a PD because they don't have enough to make 1.25 on both.
Okay.
So you have to do a PD, because you can't create a non-conforming lot. So I view it as, if the city was not involved in this, does this even make sense? If the city did not own this, somebody walked in off the street, had 2.37 acres, one they wanted to make 1.25, the other one 1.2, we're allowing them to split the land. Because if we don't do a PD, that's always going to be 2.37. So if you took the city out of the equation, what would you do here?
Right.
The same thing I would say on the 3 lots. If the city was not involved, from a land use perspective, would the commission recommend a minor general plan amendment? We've done hundreds of those. And looking at the existing zoning on the east is you can put 40 units an acre over there on the RM2.
Mm-hmm.
To the north, you have a bar. To the northwest, you have a mobile home park that's non-conforming. So sometimes the land use plan might not be correct. So if someone came in and owned 2.37 acres, said they want to split it into 3 lots, and here's the character of the area, if the city wasn't involved, that's to me how you ask the question. If the city wasn't involved, how would either of the things that staff proposed, where it got wonky was when we were having horses or no horses and allowing horses on 3/4 of an acre and all that. We had many permutations I don't know where that slide is, but where we were showing the council, those were all available options. And maybe there's a few that we missed. So to me, you step back and you say, if the city was not involved, does this make sense? And would we entertain it for someone else?
Okay. And I'm much more comfortable with this proposal where there is a 1.25 acre cutout that matches the existing zoning.
And the land use map, and the future land use.
And also removing any horse language. How can you deny someone horse privileges after the city puts it in on their property? So
Right.
Yeah, Kendra, I guess as I consider this neighborhood and the surrounding properties, it is definitely it's a variety of zone properties and living environments. You have several RSGR, there are horse properties, others are probably RSGR, but they're not. Then you've got the bar, you've got the mobile home park, you've got the zone for 40 dwelling units. So I think part of this, I'm looking at what would best serve the city. I mean, if we're looking if the idea, which I think is commendable, is to sell this property and then use those funds to purchase another property, rehab that, or get it back to a point where it could be sold, and then continue that if it's possible. I guess I go back to what was the originally the plan was to divide it into 3 parcels. Mm-hmm. Now, for those who are thinking horses and all that obviously creates a problem. I guess my own personal opinion is, having seen that, I don't know that we need to make that horse property. If you want to buy a horse property, you can buy horse property all over the place here. I have 2 properties on my street alone, horse properties, that are for sale. So I don't know that we have to do that. So what was the rationale for going away from the 3? Was it just because the commission just kind of said we don't want to do that?
I think after a lot of, discussions, internal discussions, it seems that we could get more out of 2 lots because it would be bigger. Like on one side, it would just be, a little bit bigger than splitting it in 3 because of the buildable area on the west side. It would just make it, I don't know.
So the belief is that with 2 properties, you could get more than if you sold 3 individually.
It's about a horse apiece.
Pardon?
It's about a horse apiece.
A horse apiece?
A horse apiece.
Chairman.
I think it's a wash, which is another pun there I didn't intend on.
Right.
But
okay.
Whether you have 2 lots or 3 lots, I was looking at it from bringing in water standpoint. It made more sense to bring in 3 lots if you're going to pay for water, because if we are going to bring in water, we can only now have 2 lots cover that cost, which is about $30,000, and it made sense to bring in. So now we may still bring in water, but that $30,000 gets deducted. We don't have an appraisal. We can't give an exact answer.
Right.
But it seems like we're going to net about the same whether we do the 2 lots or the 3 lots. Okay. To me, it made more sense to do 3 at the time. Because we're bringing in water, we may as well get 3, and that little house to the east is on a tank. They have to truck in their water, so maybe they hook up. Maybe they get a benefit by us bringing in water. Maybe they still will.
Right.
Mr. Chairman?
Hang on 1 second there.
Yeah.
Dave.
My other thought on 2 versus 3, I mean, you look at this map and you see where the buildable area is. Mm-hmm. It really crams it. I think these 2 lots would sell very quickly. You kind of leave an undesirable lot that might not sell right away. Then we have vacant land sitting around. We could have potential problems. I think by going with 2, it makes that lot a lot more desirable. It gives you more area to build. I think it increases the value because you can do some grading, and I don't know if you went out there, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at it.
Having gone out, there's a reason why I thought that west property, even if it's the 1.25 acre, it's still,
well, and I think it gives somebody an option. They could build and then slowly grade, slowly do some stuff over time. They wouldn't have a ton of upfront costs. This is my beliefs anyway.
Okay, sure.
And I think, and I agree with Larry that it does. 2 versus 3, that 1.25 acres is more desirable. It gives you the horse privileges. So it takes away, by having horse privileges on there, it takes away some of the negative of the wash being there. So it still boosts some of the negative and thus helps bring that value back up, in my opinion. So that's why I think a 2 versus 3 would be better.
Okay. Mr. Cantwell?
Very similar thoughts. I had a problem with the 3 lot in that you were allowing horses on those at less than 1.25 acres, and I don't think you have any other lots that have horses at less than 1.25 acres. So the 2-lot, if you're going to have horses, the 2-lot with the 1 1/4 makes sense. The 3-lot, in my opinion, would have been just strictly housing, residential housing, so
Which I'm, okay.
kind
yeah, I'm
of in similar
opposed to
opinion.
residential housing, so.
Chairman,
Okay. Okay, yeah.
I got a
question.
So, I did walk the property, I'm sure all of us did. I do have horses, just like you do. Mine aren't on the perfect flat ground. In fact, I have them on, it's a sloped property to a degree. Farrier always thought that was a great deal for the horses because it kept them, kept their feet wearing evenly on both sides, things like that. He never complained about that. One of the things I noticed on that property out there on the west side, yes, that wash is a lot more bigger or deeper per se than what it shows on a picture. Yeah, the 3 dimensions is an eye opener. But on the back side of that, it seemed like there was a great area to where the water comes in from off the mobile home park. Currently, it cuts across slightly at an angle and joins the main wash. Well, that part there could be filled in to where it just drops straight out of the mobile home park and right into the main wash. And that area in the back there could be another pad where you could have a pretty nice mare motel, MD barn. It lends itself to a lot of nice options.
I guess.
I know horses would pretty much tear all that vegetation up in very short order because they love to chew on bark, and the trees would be dead in no time. But
Yeah.
I think, and the other thing I noticed is that the part of the parcel on the front side of that parcel where it drops off into the main wash, my current home that I live in was built on a very similar type slope. And we ended up doing a duplex type home to where it's multi-level, and the lower level incorporated that lower slope. Worked out perfectly. We didn't have to cut hardly anything do very much grading to cut the house in the way it needed to be. So, originally on the 3 lots, we talked about taking fill from the back side and bringing it up to the front side so there'd actually be a spot to build the house out. And, a good designer or whatnot could probably overcome that quite easily. So, and I'm thinking that the smaller lot the sale of that smaller lot being the more desirable lot as far as, flat and whatnot, that would sell quicker than the 1 1/4 acre, and it would recover the city's costs in bringing the water in, plus maybe a little profit. And then the 1 1/4 acre would be pure profit.
Good. Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, Chairman. As we kind of were recommended, if anybody brought this forward, whether it's the city, an individual, I would totally be against the 3 split, just because it would leave that 3rd lot very hard to manage. And also with the horse, there's no way, I don't think any of us would approve horses on 3/4 acre, considering what has happened in the past with that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
going
certainly,
on.
I was not indicating I would want to approve horses on those smaller lots.
Right.
Like I said, there are plenty of places in the city of Apache Junction, you can buy horse properties that are far, far better than this, so yeah, the horses, I agree, I would never want to approve that. I just, like I said, I just don't see this being an ideal horse property, so. Okay, that being said, this is a public hearing, so do we have anyone that would like to, thank you, Kendra. Anyone that would like to give a statement or make a comment relative to this case? Yamo? Please come on up and give your name, address, please.
I'm used to that stuff.
I know. Yeah, I know.
Mahmoud Muhyiddin, 2304 North Cortez Road. I think that's, you guys are on the right track in making the decision with the two parcels. Just recently, 1.25 acre parcel sold, but have a single wide trailer, $457,000. And these two parcels right now, as a bubble is blowing and prices are skyrocketing. Hope the city go forward very fast with this one, put a for sale sign on, the people will buy it, pay the high price. And last I heard about that, what this money, what the city is going to generate, is going to go to nonprofit organization. As a public and the city interest, I would say the city is trying to buy property in the Prospector Park and rodeo ground instead of giving out that money to nonprofit organization. They're most of them part of the city. To save that money when you guys want to buy a Prospector Park and spend that money with the swapping the money, selling the land, buying the land, then you guys have more fun sitting over there. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else would like to make a statement? Sir, again, please come up, state your name and address, please.
James Borachter, 1054 East Roosevelt. I'm the person next door to this. I'm the one that started all this, I guess. I don't think you guys really know what's on that property. There is glass, there is metal, there is needles, there's everything still on that property. You put horses on that, you're going to have problems. Now, if you split it into two parcels, only one of them's going to have horses, make it the east one, please. Because if you'll get more out of the west one, I mean, you'll get more out of the east one because it is flatter and better for building. And you'll have more room for your horses. The wash is a pretty bad thing. I've seen that thing run 3 foot deep. I mean, I don't know. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to make a statement relative to this case? If not, I will close the public hearing. Okay, at this time then, I will allow for any additional discussion on this case. Any commissioners have any thoughts, anything additional?
Chairman Nick,
Yes, Darrell.
regarding the statement the gentleman made regarding needles and glass and whatnot, if we move or we sell this property, is there enough of that kind of stuff laying around to where it would not be family friendly? Or did we get pretty much a lot of that cleaned up and it's safe for a family to purchase and build a home?
I would say, I don't know, we probably got 98% of it. I don't know that there's still needles out there. That doesn't mean there couldn't be.
Sure.
But certainly the city can go in there with a metal detector and yeah, I mean, every step you're gonna find nuts and bolts and you all walked it, so you saw what was out there in glass and, you know, are you gonna get every shard of glass out of there? I don't know. And I guess we disclose it and see what happens.
Yeah,
But I
Counselor,
think
is there any liability for the city by us being the selling the owner?
Mr. Chair, there'd be a disclosure statement saying basically how this property came into the city's possession. And so it's buyer beware. They have to do their own due diligence. They have to have a property inspection. So if the property inspector misses it, it's on the property inspector. And there'll also be an insurance policy.
I think we could, if we get these work crews back, the folks working for the court workers or the state prisoners, we could certainly spend, you know, a few more days out there, you know, raking with the metal detector and picking up as much of that as can. What's underneath the trees in the wash? There was a runway between the property to the north and this property that people were coming over and using the property. So there may be, you know, the city could also go in and trim up the Palo Verdes too a little bit just to open it up so the next person might not have to deal with as much of it, but, so.
Chairman?
Yes.
Larry, the city council basically is going to determine what happens with the funds for all this, right?
Yeah, the staff recommendation is the nonprofit that was alluded to. That is the City of Apache Junction Community Development Corporation. That group was set up to do neighborhood revitalization. That's what, this was neighborhood revitalization, so the idea was to go to that essentially separate nonprofit, but the city works closely with it to, again, go into another neighborhood and buy something, bulldoze it if we have to, and then sell that lot. So that was the intent.
Okay, any other comments before we consider a motion? Anything else you would like to add? All right, so this is case PZ-7-19. Do I have a motion on this case?
I'd love to give one, but I don't have one for the exact.
So, how about with the older, the one from the prior? Would the prior,
It will work, we're going to have to modify
Mr.
it.
Chairman, you can use the prior motion, just substitute whatever zoning district, if you want PD, if you want to go with the 1.25 on the west, you can substitute your own language
right,
in the body of the motion.
Do we have a
Yes, on
recommended one?
page,
yeah, you're looking at that, I think, right?
Yeah, but the language is different. That's what I'm,
Oh, okay, no, that's,
let me,
yeah, we may need a minute to, yeah.
yes, there you go. On page 4 or 5 of the staff report from last time.
yeah.
I have it in front of you.
That
Yeah, I have that too,
that
so,
continues to page 10.
right, I have that,
Well, you don't have to read 1 through 5
Okay.
per se. You can
right.
just reference 1 through 5, but then it can be RS, like number 5 would be RS.
Yeah, the only thing we'll have to do is change that from a 3-parcel land split. That's the only, we'll have to make sure you
2, right.
include that.
And then we're dropping the horse one.
And dropping the horse, any language on horses, yes. Yep.
Okay. Chairman?
David?
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the Apache Junction City Council approval of rezoning case PZ 7-19, a request by the city of Apache Junction, owner applicant, represented by Kendra Eleanor, to rezone a 2.37 plus or minus acre property north of East Roosevelt Street from RSGR to RSGR/PD. So low density, single family, detached residential by plan development for the purpose of creating 2 parcels, land split, one is 1.25 acres and one approximately 1.2 acre. With the 5 following conditions, do I have to read all those?
No,
We just have to amend number 5.
Yeah, with the amendment of number 5, with the only allowing the standard horses on the 1.25 acre.
So number 5 should also say RSGR/PD.
As well as RSGR.
Okay,
Wasn't there
so,
also a different setback on those?
Pardon me?
Wasn't there also a different setback on those, on 5? Wasn't it 40 feet now instead of 20?
No,
No.
they're keeping the 20.
The front setback is 25,
And 40 on
Oh,
the
you're
rear.
gonna do
40 on the rear and 20 on the sides, which is our conventional. So the only modification is that there's a 25-foot front setback instead of 40.
okay, so I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. I have a second. Is there any more discussion before we have a vote? All right, hearing none, I'll call now for a vote. Roll call, Rudy?
Chairman Heck,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
No.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hanchey.
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 opposed, motion passes, Mr. Chairman. This will go back to the city council at their meeting on
January 19th.
January 19th.
Very good. Okay. Thank you. Hang on. Okay, we have concluded the public hearing, so we'll move on to old business. Any old business, Larry? No? Any new business?
Nope.
Okay. Information and reports. As the chair, I again want to extend a welcome to the newest members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Darrell Cross, Jesse Gage, Dirk Begeman, and then now Dick Cantwell. And am I allowed to say later, Robin Bark? Am I allowed to state the okay.
Sure.
And eventually, so we could scratch it from the minutes, and eventually Robin Barker. So we're delighted to have you on board, and we thank you for your efforts to serve the city. That's it for information reports. Director's report.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a short presentation. Some of this has been given to the council, so not too much modification, but one of the commissioners asked kind of what happens next with the state land, and it's certainly a legitimate question for you all, as we're all getting busier and busier daily, and where this thing is going to move to. So this is slightly modified from the council, but I will try to answer any question you have. We might not have all the answers because things are a little bit fluid now post-auction. So essentially, I'll kind of go through what the auction timeline was, and then kind of talk about what we think is going to happen next. Again, that's still evolving. Creation of community facilities districts, that's what CFD is. So we have several items for the city to create community facilities districts, application fees, etc. There are some proposed fees that are going to the council January 19th. I'll get into some of that. There may be some zoning or subdivision text amendments. Probably not zoning text, but subdivision text amendments that are part of this. And then this is just general. This was more for the council to get ready for when you're going from 10, 15 single-family homes a month to 120 single-family homes a month, which is what the proposal is. Then we're ramping up essentially. Mm-hmm. So the bids were due on the 20th. You had to be qualified to be a bidder. So there were 4 entities that submitted proposals to be available to be at the live auction. So what happened was, because there was more than one proposer, then it went to a second date a couple weeks later. So the actual auction date was on November 4th. So there were 4 bidders. There was a winner of the bid. That bidder paid $245.5 million for approximately 2,780 acres. We just call it, I think, 2,800 to round up. So this was the notice. That area in blue is what's called the auction piece. That's what was purchased at the auction. So this is Elliott Road along here. This is approximately Idaho line alignment, Ray Road, and Meridian. So you had to have a minimum bid of $68 million. So the bidding started at $68 million, and it was going up at sometimes by $200,000, sometimes by $5 million. It was, I think there was over 100 separate bids. So now what is being annexed? So as we may know, the current city boundary, if you look at the future land use map, our city maps, our city boundary comes along Elliott. There's a little jog, and then it goes east out to, this is the Barkley alignment. These are all county islands. These are lands that never were annexed into the city when the city incorporated in 1978. So, whoops. For some of you new folks. So again, all these little areas are county islands within the city. So this, what is being annexed is approximately 6,200 acres, 6,200 acres. It does not include lands already annexed into the city, this little notch, Rudy likes to call it. There is also a little area on the southwest that there is a subdivision in there that is in Pinell County. They access their property from the west, but in order to kind of move the annexation along and not have objectors, if you will, the state essentially owns all of this. They're the state land department for benefit of the trustees, all 13 of them. So this area will not be annexed. This map in general shows the potential future alignment of 24. They have the environmental impact statement is done, which brings the road to Ironwood. And supposedly it won't look like a freeway portion. It'll be essentially some on-ramps, overpasses. The complete freeway type design really won't be done till later. But right now, they have everything funded to here. The rest is part of this north-south corridor. So when you think growth is coming here over the next 50 years, it's coming because they're going to build a freeway from Eloy to Gold Canyon. And then these offshoots will be there. These are still as part of the final EIS. This is really what's narrowed down to in terms of what they're going forward with the final environmental impact statement. So again, this is the auction piece, 2,800 acres, annexation piece, including the auction piece, 6,200 acres. Any questions so far?
Where do we stand on that north-south expressway?
It's in the middle of an environmental impact statement. It's not a final EIS yet, and then there has to be funding for it. So again, I think you're 20 plus years away from doing that, and then every 5 years you have to update the EIS anyway by federal law under NEPA. So it's a long ways away.
So right,
At least a decade out, and I do know that, some of the monies that were part of this regional transit entity that was the voters approved for Pinell County, some of those monies may be used for matching funds and things like that for this. So funding is going to be the key. So I don't know that anybody can give you a timetable on when it's going to be built.
so the only north-south access through that whole area is going to continue to be Ironwood?
For the present, correct. But when this future, all this traffic that's to the south, instead of coming up through Ironwood, they're going to probably use the 24. They're predicting 50% of the traffic that comes up from Santan Valley is going to deviate and go west to the 202. So within this area, Ray Road will be extended, Elliott will be extended. There may be, this is, I forget what half-mile street this is, Rudy, if you know.
Warner.
That's Warner. So those might be extended through. So there will be relief out of there through other mile section roads. So the other piece of this, as I said, this is roughly, this line here isn't accurate, of course, but this is the 4 square miles, more than 4 square miles. These sections aren't even. You can see that this section's actually bigger than this section. So this over here is more than a regular square mile. So that's why you get up with the 2,800. So that's the auction piece. This other piece, including lands that are already in the city, is called the retained property. So the state of Arizona, or the state land trust, has this retained property, including lands that the state currently owns. The various colors mean that this could be light industrial because this is an industrial park. So we maybe buffer this as a job center. This is a general concept map here. We have the siphon draw, wash, things like that. Maybe some multifamily or something next to the higher density residential next to the job center, things like that. So this is all conceptual, maybe some commercial along here. But again, the distinction is that what's annexed is 6,200 acres. What's purchased is 2,800. This whole thing is roughly 8,500 acres, some of which are already in the city. So what we do know is that they're supposed to have a pre-application meeting, the developer, within 90 days of the effective date, which I think may be the day they sign the participation agreement. So we're already working on a pre-application meeting. Rudy's developed a whole schedule for annexation, working on a legal description, basically going to the council on January 19th for a public hearing for the annexation. These other things really won't come into effect because we've determined through a detailed look at the state law that we thought this might have to come in 2 or 3 annexations. Joel found some court cases that we can bring this in one annexation. So we're going to annex all 6,200 acres at once, and that, so these other 2 bullet points really aren't needed anymore. Essentially what this says is they're supposed to annex the property within 1.5 years. The whole thing has to be annexed within 2 years. But we're probably going to get it done in the next 8 months, roughly. So the annexation will happen. So again, soon for a pre-app meeting, the annexation, the blank petition, that's going to happen this month. Probably I just put summer of 2021, and another thing I have like June. So these are all subject to change. They're general. And then, again, this will all be in one fell swoop, these 2 bullet points. Then, again, looking forward, this is a timetable. We thought like a lot is going to happen on January 21st, of course. But then right about midsummer, the annexation will be complete. There'll be pre-development agreements, community facility districts formed, and zoning all happening probably in the next 6 to 8 months. Then we're looking forward in February, we have to start asking for staff that we need the following fiscal year. So there's some other things that this is 208 that has to do with the sewer service area that has to be amended. The fire district has to go to the state, to the commissioner, and have the fire district boundary changed to include the 6,200 acres. Then there's all this engineering, we're still guessing here, but, they would like to have houses going up when that 24 opens. So people, there's a house there, I think I'll buy it. So we think that could be as, within 24 months, maybe sooner. And the thing I should point out that was kind of a surprise to us, that it ended up that 2 developers got together and bought the auction property. So you may have heard that D.R. Horton was partnered up with Brookfield. So that entity together are buying the 2,780 acres. Then as we get into it further, that's supposed to be master planned together, but with 2 different developers, figuring out which side of Ironwood they might go, and they might be at different paces. So it starts getting somewhat complicated for us to figure out. So our current zoning regulations allow for master plan communities, so there's really not amendments to the zoning code. They'll be bringing forth a rezoning, just like we did tonight, a RSGRPD. We'll have a MPC zoning that essentially, though, we're going to have 2 MPC zonings. We're going to have one for I don't know why I'm losing this. We're going to have one for the auction piece, an MPC zoning. Then we're going to have an MPC zoning for the retained property. I guess I could have used this drawing. So we're actually going to be doing 2 MPC zonings. One's going to be more generic for the state land, the retained property. This one will probably be more specific, but with kind of guiding principles for how the whole thing gets developed. Let's see. So we have to make some changes to, these developers want to move fast. So typically what happens here is once the development is approved, the developer likes most stuff approved administratively. So once the council and the plan commission make the recommendation on the zoning and the council approves the zoning, the developer wants to go back to the council as, probably never if they had their choice, but they'll be in the zoning code. What's a major amendment, what's a minor amendment to a master plan community zoning. And so that there's a lot of details to be worked out. Where the real planning is going to happen is over the next 8 months. That's where what this thing's going to look like, how it's going to be developed, what it's going to look like in 20, 30 years. So the MPC district for both the auction piece and the retained property kind of spell out the parameters of how this whole thing looks and feels, and the character of it, if you will. So what they wanted, go ahead.
Just question, and you may answer this down the road, but 6,200 acres, that's a lot. Is there another entity that could dispute this or appeal this or something if they thought they should have their piece of the 60?
Well, the state has the rest of that to annex. Everything you see in this blue, is another 220 square miles of land that they can, they can come in tomorrow and buy this if they want. They can go to the state and spend 18 months and say, okay, state, I want to have an auction over here by the landfill. Go for it. So can someone dispute this current auction? I don't know. Probably not. Joel's shaking his head no.
Well, I suppose the state land could change their mind and say, no, we're gonna let Mesa annex it. I guess that could happen, but at this point, the agreement with AES-LD, that's the state land department, has been signed. We've been told, we haven't seen it, but I'm sure it has been signed, and we're going to get a copy of it.
Okay.
And I think that this is a go. The north-south corridor is a bigger question. I don't even think about that one, because I think that's more like 30 years off, especially with funding. And who knows if we'll even have cars still. Who knows? They might be outlawed.
Right.
We'll be on horses.
So let's see what else we're going to talk about. So again, as this bullet here kind of says, developers want to start moving dirt as fast as they can. So they want to make some amendments to the subdivision code, that preliminary plat, once they get a preliminary plat approved, they want to start building. Typically, we don't let them start building till a final plat. So those are some things that, again, we want to have assurances and bonds and all that stuff. So they want to kind of move fast, because now time is money. We've already started changing some staff, having a project manager set up, working with me and Rudy, and probably have another engineer on staff, because there's a lot of engineering that comes with all of this. And we may have third-party engineers that do water, wastewater, stormwater, to keep up with this. Again, one developer is talking about coming out with 900 homes the first year, the other one about 500. So again, at 1,200 homes a year, that's 116 building permits a month, and that means more engineering inspectors, more building inspectors, permit technicians, plan reviewers, GIS, and then there's right now we have a water CFD, Community Facilities District, Apache Junction Water CFD, and Superstition Mountain Utilities CFD number 1, I think it's called. Those two existing CFDs, Darren runs the sewer district all by himself. The water, our city finance helps run that. The city council is the board of that. We're going to create 2 more CFDs that all that infrastructure eventually goes back to the water and sewer CFD, but there's also financing tool of the Community Facilities District for roads and parks and other stuff. So we may have to add finance staff. So I just kind of put that in there. So the council, again, directed staff, I think, a month or so ago, to come up with a Community Facilities District policy, an application process, and an application fee and a deposit. They asked us to work on a 3-party intergovernmental agreement between the city and the 2 existing CFDs, so that the developer has one entity to negotiate with, not 3 different agreements. And of course, they'll be partnered with us during that process. So that IGA will go to the 19th, presumably. And then we have a whole bunch of fees that we don't have that to help pay for the processing of these master plan communities. Those are all going to the council. You can go to the city website right now. I could pull it up if you want. A whole page of fees, so that growth pays for itself, that we're able to collect fees to process the rezoning. So it's not like our current zoning, which is, I don't know how much, Rudy, $1,200. It's more like $25,000 is what we're going to charge for this rezoning. Again, we've already working on some amendments to the code. So again, I can go back to any slide. We're still, again, with 2 developers, and we're still trying to get kind of an overall conceptual framework of how this is all going to go. And again, 2 CFDs, 2 master plan communities. Even within the 3,000 acres, there's 2 CFDs, maybe 2 other development agreements. It's all still, evolving.
Larry, this master plan community, I'm trying to get my arms around the concept. So right now we have a zoning code in Apache Junction, and it allows for master plan communities in the document. But is that a separate set of codes, or are they going to use our?
What they're going to do,
zoning code?
typically, let's just use a planned development, a PD. So a PD, you would rezone a property to, say, RS5 PD for Dan Kaufman. He's got 104 lots. It's because he wants to change the setbacks and maybe the building heights, and he only wants to have an 18-foot front yard instead of 20, things like that. It's a write-your-own zoning. So we say, well, we're negotiating. If you want to have relaxed setbacks, then what does the city get? What kind of amenities for the residents? So think of that PD now applied to, instead of 20 acres, 4,000 acres, 3,000 acres. So what I was going to show you here, this is in our zoning code. You guys can all look this up. It is in here, I believe. Master plan community. So we have this PD overlay, which is used here all the time. We have a master plan community that was pre-built into the 2014 code rewrite. And essentially they have to, and you can read through this, they have to essentially do a plan, a zoning and development plan, and basically they'll create their own development standards. We'll work with them to make sure that they're kind of meet our general plan vision and goals, so we're not, we want to create something, that's of value to the long-term community. So all this stuff is in there. They have to essentially follow this and submit a zoning. And again, it has to do with where are the schools, where are the parks, how's your drainage going to work? All that has to be in this.
So essentially we will end up with kind of 2 different sets of regulations then. They'll be similar, but inside the master plan community, some regulations may be different than at Idaho and Superstition.
Yes. Okay. We'll actually have 2 of these. We'll have 2 MPCs, one for that state retained property, which probably will be more general because there's going to be another developer. We'll come back and amend it to make it might be more specific for them. So that will be a generic, some fairly generic MPC. But again, hopefully, abiding by all our highest ideals of what this should look like someday. Then for the 3,000 acres, it's going to be much more detailed. It's basically write their own zoning. What are the heights? What are the setbacks? What's the architectural character? How many parks?
And they have to run that by us and get council's approval on the MPC. And
correct. Okay. So the MPC zoning and a development agreement, that comes here and then also to the council. Then that's going to be also written in there, what's a major amendment to the MPC? What's a minor amendment to the MPC? They also then want to have unit, so our code talks about unit plans. If I can find that, I think it was based on comments received. So there are also levels underneath the MPC. So I'm trying to find that here where that general provisions. I thought it was in a paragraph 6, but I'm not finding it. But anyway, there is the overall MPC, then there'll be development units within that. So you can imagine on 4 square miles development, that might be 1 development unit, or that might be, if there's 4 square miles, there might be 4 development units, or 1 development unit for the 4 square miles, then a unit plan that end up being more of the subdivision level.
Okay.
And then they were also talking about not only development units, but planning units. So again, with two different developers, they're using sometimes the same language, sometimes not. But anyway, this goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council for your review and approval eventually, and recommendation to the council.
And they'll want it as quickly as possible, our approval, right?
Yeah, they won't want a bunch of continuances, but again,
Sure,
this is,
yeah.
there's only one time to do this right, there's only one time to look at it, and whatever pressure you think you're under, you have the right to make a recommendation.
We'll get bushwhacked in the parking lot.
But we're also dealing with experienced developers who have done this before and probably know what we're going to be needing as well or better than we do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No,
Well, but again, I
wanna
think
get it-
we're here to question that.
Yeah,
We're not just here to say, okay, oh, you guys are great, let's approve it.
no,
Yeah.
I think we're.
You're going to strike a balance, I think,
I
between
don't
what's
want that-
best for the community in the long run. They want to make money, they want to be successful, but there are going to be our residents too.
I don't-
And so
I
we
don't
want to
like
make sure that,
I don't know any developer that won't cut corners.
I don't, I guess I just don't, I don't want us to get steamrolled thinking that we're just supposed to roll over, so
any other questions on this? I
Yeah,
think,
do you foresee a major amendment to the general plan, or do you think it's written well
The
enough?
general plan already has provisions for MPC, so this area is already designated MPC south of US 60, basically.
Right, okay, so.
That's in the
you don't
planning
see
area.
Any need for major amendment?
Nope.
so you're taking a look at the first 2,800 square miles to start housing units in early 2022.
2,800 acres, probably could be as early, that's 12 months from now.
Yeah,
12 to 15 months, that's what they would like, whether it gets there or not, that's, again, we don't have a schedule. And there's multiple moving pieces. There's a schedule for the annexation. There's a schedule for creating these community facilities districts. There's a schedule for the entitlement for the zoning. And there is part of all that, there's master planning that has to go on for water, wastewater. So, and many of those schedules, the annexation is kind of runs on its own, but all those other schedules, entitlement, and so we've asked them for a schedule for the entitlement process and a schedule for development, presuming. And so some of these, they're all, engineering is a big factor in how all this, when it can happen, and so there's interplay amongst those multiple schedules all happening at once. And they're already have talked about, working on subdivision plats already, and kind of, but, so it's,
roughly how many homes are we talking about?
well, I want to say, I think we said the other day would be about, if they're going to do, I think that 4 square miles, I think we thought it could handle about 5,000 housing units, something like that. Again, the first year they want to do about, 1,400. Yeah, not
On a
one,
horse.
probably not one horse down there.
Probably not.
And
Gonna have a donkey?
Just the guy that's out in the lobby out here,
Are you moving in
The
down
lost
there?
Dutchman, yeah.
any feel
No,
for
no.
interest in the remaining areas?
I think, again, this is the way the market is right now.
One of us can move.
They're setting it, this whole thing is the state setting it up and getting that roadway extended. And the value of the state property goes up because of this first 4 square miles. So if there's a demand, there will be, and depending on the pace of it, the state will say, yeah, let's go to auction. So it's hard to say. It just takes,
18 months.
it takes 18 months just to get it to auction. So developers have to be very patient. And the one developer that was originally involved, Brookfield, they have been involved in Eastmark, and they know that they're doing 500 permits a year, and they're going to be built out within about 3 years. So they want this to start going by the time they're finished over there. So that's how their advanced planning they're doing.
Larry, I don't know if you've been down there recently, but the Fujifilm plant and MGC processing plant, Right behind their property is where the 24 is coming through, and they are moving tons of dirt right now. They've broke ground on that. They've
Yeah.
brought it all the way out to Ironwood.
Okay,
As far as moving dirt and putting the footprint in of the 24.
yeah, it's gonna go fast. So, that's all we know for today.
Well, thank you, Larry. That was most helpful. I appreciate your providing that information for us. Okay, so at this point, we're looking for a selection of meetings, dates, times, location, and purpose. So do I hear a motion?
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission hold a regular meeting on December 22nd, 2020 at 7 PM in the City Council chambers located at 300 East Superstition Boulevard. In the event there are no items to be brought forward, the commission, these meetings may be canceled. Notification of cancellation properly posted, and the commission notified by staff.
Very good, thank you. I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Dirk, second. Thank you very much. Okay, roll call. Rudy?
Vice Chair Hanchey,
Yes.
Chairman Heck,
Yes?
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Very good, thank you. The motion is passed. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.